Among all the stories about Abraham, none is more debated or more misunderstood than his willingness to sacrifice his son. Many believe God wanted Abraham to kill his son, but changed his mind at the last moment. But the Quran reveals something far more profound. Quran 37, 103 to 105. So when they had both submitted their wills to God and he laid him prostrate on his forehead, we called out, "O Abraham, you have already fulfilled the vision." This moment changes everything. God did not wait until the knife was lifted. He did not need a life to be taken. God intervened the moment submission was complete, confirming that Abraham had already fulfilled the vision long before any harm could occur. This shows that the sacrifice God required was not the death of his son, but the depth of Abraham's submission. If God said Abraham had already fulfilled the vision, then the question becomes, what was the vision really about? It was not about killing, it was about love, and what Abraham loved most. God revealed that Abraham loved righteousness, faith, and obedience more than his own flesh and blood. The test was about revealing priorities, not taking a life. Submission means loving God above family, culture, tradition, and even ourselves. This is the heart of Abraham's faith. The entire religion of Abraham calls believers to that same willingness, to place God and righteousness above even the strongest human attachment. This is why God made Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son a central theme of the Quran, honored in the greatest annual celebration at the end of Hajj. It is not a celebration of death, but of submission, trust, and spiritual clarity. Abraham's example directly challenges our modern world. Today, people prioritize family approval, friendships, comfort, cultural expectations, and personal desires over righteousness. Believers compromise their moral integrity because they fear losing relationships. But Abraham teaches us that righteousness is never built on moral compromise. Truth cannot grow where we protect wrongdoing for the sake of love. This is the battle at the heart of the culture war, the struggle between moral absolutes and cultural relativism. Abraham's story calls us back to clarity, courage, and devotion to God above all else. This principle appears in the story of Noah. In Quran 71, 26 to 27, Noah prayed that God would not leave a single disbeliever alive, knowing they would only raise wicked children. God answered his prayer, yet when Noah's own son was lost in the flood, Noah's heart shattered. In Quran 11:42 to 48, Noah begged God to save his son. God answered, "He is not of your family, for his conduct was unrighteous." This is a profound spiritual lesson. Family is defined not by blood, but by righteousness. Noah stood against wickedness until it involved his son. Then he hesitated. Many believers fall into the same trap, protecting wrongdoing because it comes from someone they love. But Abraham stands as the opposite example. He did not hesitate. His love for God was first. This same principle also appears in the story of Prophet Joseph. In a well-produced 45-episode series on YouTube, Joseph, now ruling Egypt, hears that his father Israel has gone blind from grief when he lost him. Joseph says something remarkable. His father suffered because he had not sacrificed him, as Abraham had sacrificed his son. Joseph was not saying anyone should be killed. He was saying his father had not surrendered him to God, emotionally, spiritually, completely, the way Abraham surrendered his son. This confirms a truth understood across centuries. Abraham's sacrifice was never physical. It was spiritual, the surrender of the heart. One of the greatest reasons the world descended into moral darkness is that believers refuse to separate themselves from the unrighteousness within their own families. We make excuses for wrongdoing. We defend those we love, even when they corrupt themselves and others. We prioritize blood over righteousness, and darkness spread. But the Quran provides perfect balance. Quran 31:14-15. God commands believers to be good to their parents, show gratitude, and accompany them with justice, but not to obey them in disbelief or wrongdoing. Quran 9:24 warns believers not to love family, wealth, or comfort more than God or the striving of righteousness. Quran 58:22 teaches that true believers cannot give their hearts to those who oppose God's truth, even if they are their own relatives. God is not calling us to hatred. He is calling us to spiritual clarity. We honor our families. We treat them with justice. We show kindness and companionship, but we do not join them in wrongdoing. We do not defend their iniquities. We do not betray righteousness out of affection. Conclusion: the spiritual sacrifice God requires. Abraham's test was never about bloodshed. It was about the heart. Do we love God above everything? Are we willing to give up anything that compromises truth? Do we choose righteousness when it conflicts with affection? Abraham teaches that true sacrifice is not physical. It is spiritual endurance, moral courage, and complete surrender to God's will. His example calls us to rise above the emotional pressures that break so many believers. It urges us to uphold righteousness even when love pulls in another direction. It reminds us that unity, healing, and moral clarity begin with devotion to God, and only then can we truly heal the fractures of our communities. This is the lesson of Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son, a lesson needed now more than ever.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Beyond the Veil. I hope it gave you something to think about, something that will bring you closer to the truth. Next week, we will continue exploring where faith, culture, and history meets reality. And I'd love for you to be a part of this journey. Make sure you subscribe, share this video with a friend, and leave a comment to let me know what stood out to you. Together, we can bring more light to the world. See you next time.